the morning of January 15th and stole a large landscaping truck from that company. He was driving around in the morning. She was hit at 10:30 in the morning. He was high on drugs.
Sorry, 42 has a call.
This was a busy intersection, a major intersection in Tacoma. I could see that there were a lot of police activity up over the horizon. I was waiting at a red light. My light turned green, and then I started to take my left turn to get onto I-5. And the next thing I remember is my car's on its side, and I'm standing on the driver's window. Somebody came running up to the vehicle and said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." I've got a broken neck. I've got my C5 and C6 fused together. I've got a blocked artery in my neck. You have two arteries that feed blood to your brain. I only have one now. I know police have a difficult job to do and things, but there's a point where once the car turned its headlights off and started running red lights, I would think that that would not risk that.
610, we got a lot of traffic here at 52nd Broadway.
This is one of the hidden gems of our state of Washington, a location where a wide variety of organizations and groups of all kinds of ethnic and racial backgrounds have enjoyed one location together. They could come to see a performer, or perhaps could come and listen to a lecture, or a Sunday afternoon of dance and family gatherings and fellowship. This is a beautiful location located in one of the small valleys in the central area of Seattle. It's been here since 1908, and it truly is one of the gems of the state of Washington. Washington Hall became one of those locations in our state where any ethnic group or any racial background, no matter who you were, you could come and rent the location. Can you imagine if you were here the night that Jimi Hendrix made one of his first performances? Count Basie performed here, Billie Holiday was here, Marian Anderson, you go down the list. The Danish Brotherhood built this hall for the enjoyment of all. They used it as a lodge and a gathering place for dances and family activities, but so many other groups have as well. The Jewish community, the Scandinavian community, the Eastern European community, the Ethiopian and African community was owned for a while by the Sons of Haiti, then passed on to historic Seattle. And they've done a magnificent job to restore this location. It's a tribute to everyone who ever lived in the area or came here to watch a performance. All of us must express our appreciation for the restoration of Washington Hall. This truly is one of my favorite places. Here in the little town of Nespelem on the Colville Indian Reservation, there's a remarkable memorial to Chief Joseph, probably one of the greatest military leaders of our nation. Vastly outnumbered by the United States Cavalry, and for 3.5 months, he'd pick his location, stand and fight, and then retreat. Pick his location, stand and fight, and then retreat. He almost got his entire band of Nez Perce into Canada and freedom. When young men and women in the United States military go to West Point or to the War College, they never dream that they're going to learn about an Indian leader, but it's still taught today. Chief Joseph and his band of Nez Perce Indians taught us a whole new set of lessons about warfare. Chief Joseph was a remarkable military leader, and after the Indian Wars were over, he was assigned by the United States government and forced to live here in the Colville Reservation, and that's where he lived out his life. He's honored today by our military leaders, honored today by our civic leaders, and he's in every single history book. He was a remarkable leader and a very interesting part of our state's history. This truly is one of my favorite places. Our state's been blessed with some incredible artists, and one of them was Kenneth Callahan. He grew out of the commonly called Northwest School in the 1930s. He and people like Morris Graves and William Cummings and Mark Tobey and others were known for their incredible artwork. They were broke, they were poor, they were struggling. They weren't having an easy time. But in the 1930s, the WPA came along and hired a number of artists to do some beautiful murals. And today you can see them all around the Pacific Northwest that were done as part of a government-sponsored art project. Kenneth Callahan's art changed over the years. He was very involved with the Seattle Art Museum, and then he moved as he retired out to the beach in Long Beach Peninsula. I remember we took our little son George out to see him a couple times, and he would take George by the hand and walk down the beach. And George was only 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6. And Kenneth would explain to him the motions in the sand and the motions in the sky and how they were similar. And my wife and I prayed that George would remember this someday, and I think he has. It was a life-changing experience in so many ways, an appreciation of art by this incredible man. When the Marine Hospital was built in Seattle, they wanted an artist to do the murals in the lobby, and they hired in a WPA project Kenneth Callahan. And he did murals about the working men on the ship, lifeboat drills and loading cargo. And those murals were lost for a while, they were gone for a while, they were back in the hands of the city and the museums. But now, thanks to the Birkenfeld Foundation, they've been all restored and they're back in their rightful and original location, the Pacific Medical Center. The Pacific Medical Center, and especially in the lobby where these murals are located, is truly one of my favorite places.
Ready? The House will be in order. Sergeant at Arms Alexander. The Sergeant at Arms of the House and the Sergeant at Arms of the Senate will escort President of the Senate Denny Heck, Senator Dingra, Senator Lovick, and Senator Warnock to the rostrum. The senators are invited to seats within the chamber. The joint session will be in order. The clerk will call the roll of the members of the House.
Abarno, Abel, Alvarado, Barkas, Barnard, Berg, Bergquist, Birnbaum, Berry, Bernowski, Burnett, Caldier, Callan, Chase, Connors, Corey, Cortez, Couture, Davis, Dent, Dolio, Donaghy, Dewar, Defoe, Dye, Engel, Entenmann, Eslick, Farvar, Fye, Fitzgibbon, Fossey, Goodman, Graham, Gregerson, Griffey, Hackney, Hill, Hunt, Jacobson, Keaton, Clicker, Kloba, Levitt, Lekanoff, Lee, Lowe, Macri, Monjarez, Marshall, McClintock, McIntyre, Mena, Mendoza, Morgan, Nance, Obrus, Orcutt, Ormsby, Ortiz-Self, Parsley, Paul, Penner, Peterson, Paulette, Rammel, Reed, Reeves, Richards, Rude, Rule, Ryu, Salahuddin, Santos, Schmick, Schmidt, Scott, Sen, Shavers, Simmons, Springer, Stearns, Steele, Stokesbury, Stonier, Street, Stevie, Taylor, Ty, Theringer, Timmons, Voles, Wallen, Walsh, Waters, Wiley, Ibarra. Madam Speaker.
The clerk will call the roll of the members of the Senate.
Bateman, Banky, Braun, Chapman, Christian, Cleveland, Conway, Cortez, Dingra, Dozier, Fortunato, Frame, Gildon, Gaynor, Hansen, Harris, Hasagawa, Holy, Kaufman, King, Krishna Dawson, Leas, Lovelit, Lovick, McEwen Drew, McEwen Jim, Muzal, Nobles, Orwell, Peterson, Ramos, Riccelli, Robinson, Saldana, Solomon, Schessler, Shoemake, Short, Slatter, Stanford, Torres, Trudeau, Valdez, Wagoner, Warnick, Wellman, Wilson Clare, Wilson Jeff. Madam Speaker, a quorum is present.
The first purpose of this joint session is to comply with the constitutional requirement of canvassing the vote for and against initiatives and for the constitutional elective officers. Message from the Secretary of State, the clerk will read.
I, Steve Hobbs, Secretary of State of the State of Washington, do hereby certify that according to the provisions of
Last
RCW,
line.
Steve Hobbs, Secretary of State.
Message received. In view of the election results previously read, certified to by the Secretary of State, the joint session now declares the following qualified citizens to be duly elected constitutional officers of the State of Washington. Bob Ferguson, Governor; Denny Heck, Lieutenant Governor; Steve Hobbs, Secretary of State; Mike Pelliciotti, State Treasurer; Pat McCarthy, State Auditor; Nick Brown, Attorney General; Chris Reichdahl, Superintendent of Public Instruction; Patty Kuderer, Insurance Commissioner; and Dave Upthegrove, Commissioner of Public Lands. The Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate have signed the certificates of election for the duly elected constitutional officers. Having discharged the constitutional requirement imposed upon the Speaker of the House, it is now my pleasure to call upon the President of the Senate, Denny Heck, to preside over the joint session.
This joint session has been convened to receive the State of the State message from His Excellency Governor Jay Inslee. The President appoints the following representatives and senators to form a special committee to escort the Supreme Court justices to the House chamber. Representatives Burnett and Taylor, and Senators Trudeau and Wagner. The President appoints a special committee to escort the statewide elected officials to the House chamber. Representatives Hunt and Stevie, and Senators Bateman and Christian. The President appoints a special committee to advise His Excellency, Governor Jay Inslee, that the joint session has assembled and to escort him from his chambers to the House chamber. Representatives Engel and Fitzgibbon, and Senators Kaufman and Short. Sergeant at Arms Alexander. Will the committee please escort the justices to the front of the chamber? The President is pleased to present the Justices of the Supreme Court who are present today, and if math serves me correctly, it's all of them. Chief Justice Deborah Stevens, Associate Chief Justice Charles Johnson, Justice Barbara Mattson, Justice Stephen Gonzalez, Justice Cheryl Gordon McLeod, Justice Mary Yu, Justice Raquel Montoya Lewis, Justice Helen Whitener, Justice Salvador Munguia, and retired Justice Susan Owens. Please make them feel welcome. Sergeant at Arms Alexander.
Mr. President, statewide elected officials have arrived.
Will the committee please escort the statewide officials to the front of the chamber? It's my pleasure to greet today our distinguished statewide elected officials, Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, State Treasurer Mike Pelliciotti, State Auditor Pat McCarthy, and for the last time, State Attorney General Bob Ferguson, and Commissioner of Public Lands Hillary Franz. Please make them feel welcome. In addition, we have all distinguished guests in our galleries, but some in particular that the President would like to point out and introduce. First, of course, for her 12 years of service in state, First Lady Trudy Inslee. Would you please stand? I'm pretty certain there's a pretty big contingency of the broader Inslee family up there as well. They deserve your applause as well. Also with us, former Secretary of the U.S. Department of Commerce and former Ambassador to the People's Republic of China, and the 21st Governor of the State of Washington, the Honorable Gary Locke. Chair of the Lower Elwha Qualam Tribe, Francis Charles. Please stand. Chair of the Swinomish Tribe, Steve Edwards, please stand. Chair of the Suquamish Tribe and a University of Washington region, Leonard Forsman, please stand. There you are. Chair of the Squaxin Island Tribe, Chris Peters. Chair of the Chehalis Tribe, Dustin Claytouche. And Chair of the Lummi Nation, Anthony Hilaire. It is further my pleasure to welcome and introduce the members. Please be seated. Members of the Consular Association of Washington. They will be with us tomorrow, introduced as a group, but today individually, as they are the representatives of their nations with a presence in Washington State. Please hold your applause until the end. From Canada, Craig Weichel, please stand. From the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, Mark Gantar. From the Federal Republic of Germany, Uli Fischer. From Japan, Makoti Iyohiri. From the Kingdom of Sweden, Petra Hilleberg. From the Kingdom of Norway, Viggo Ford. From the Principality of Monaco, Greg Lill. From the Republic of Finland, and Senator Elias will correct me on my yes. Mati Suoko. From the Republic of India, Prakash Gupta. From the Republic of Ireland, Bernard Henze. From the Republic of Korea, Unji Sa. From the Republic of Latvia, Imants Onkwits. From the Republic of Lithuania, Rasa Reichis. From the Swiss Confederation, Philippe Godshell. From Ukraine, Valery Goloborodko. From the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Robin Twyman. From the United Mexican States, Hector Ivan Guro Presky. Please recognize them all. Sergeant at Arms Alexander.
President, His Excellency, Governor Jay Inslee has arrived.
Will the committee please escort Governor Inslee to his place on the rostrum? The flags will be escorted to the rostrum by the Washington State Patrol Honor Guard, commanded by Sergeant James McGuire and comprised of Trooper Jeffrey Bridges, Trooper Jeffrey Eifert, and Trooper Jared Raber, and Trooper Dean Gallinger. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The national anthem will be performed by Lena Ho. And here's one for you. Lena is a student at Bellevue College and previously sang the national anthem at Governor Inslee's inaugural address in 2013 when she was in the 4th grade. She's excited to return and share her passion for music, but not as excited as we are. Lena.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Prayer will be offered today by Paul Benz, who is an ordained minister in the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America.
Governor, I thank you for this moment. When I found out the time limit for this invocation, I was thinking that I might be before the one of the committees, and the time clock would be there. But my suspicion is that I better get going, otherwise I'll get the hook in another way. Let's take a moment of silence to think to yourself for just a few seconds what you are thankful for today. We give you thanks, O Creator, for the gift of life, to celebrate it and to enjoy it, and to use it for the common good and not just ourselves. We thank you for your Spirit's enduring presence in the world and here in this place. You count on us to be that presence as much as we can. We thank you for those who made the commitment to be public servants, and thank you for those assembled here in this chamber, our temple of democracy. We thank you, O Creator, when life gives us longevity. And we thank you for those here who've been public servants for many years. Particularly, we give thanks for Governor Inslee for his many years of public service to the people of our evergreen state and beyond. We thank you for our First Lady, Trudy, and for her important work and for their family. May you continue to bless him and his family as he leaves the office of governor, but continues in his commitment to public service. May each of us assembled here in this chamber strive to find our better angel as we now engage daily over the next 4 months in the oftentimes very difficult arena of governing and negotiating details of policies. And may we never forget those who are most greatly impacted by our actions and by our inactions in this place, those that are so often left behind, locked out, and marginalized. Support us, O God, as we all continue in the struggle to make our government to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Let the assembly say,
Amen.
That was a very quiet amen. Let the assembly please say,
Amen. So our purpose here today is to receive the state of the state from His Excellency Governor Inslee, but we should not let this moment pass without acknowledgement of 4 statewide elected officials who are leaving public office. This isn't a retirement event, but an expression of gratitude is in order for Governor Inslee and Susan Owens, not present Mike Kreidler and Hillary Franz, because this is a little amazing. Listen to this. Collectively, they have more than 139 years of public office service. That's more years than we have been a state. Such is the depth of their experience. And what offices have they held along the way? School board, city council, tribal judge, district court judge, state house, state senate, insurance commissioner, land commissioner, Congress, and governor. Such is the magnitude of their involvement, all the while having a North Star lifting up communities in our state. And we are all indebted to them for their considerable public service. Please express so now. And with that, it is genuinely my distinct privilege, pleasure, and honor to introduce the 23rd Governor of the State of Washington, His Excellency, Governor Jay Inslee.
Thanks, Danny. That's what you've done for us. You're doing great work. Keep it up. You're in charge. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. And thank you to Paul Benz for that wonderful invocation, as well as Lena for that incredible vocal talent. Lena, you might have noticed I've aged more than you have during the last 12 years. Mr. President, Madam Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, distinguished justices of the court, members of the legislature, tribal leaders, local electeds, members of the consular corps, invited guests, and most importantly, my fellow Washingtonians. It is great to be with you this morning. I come to you with such pride in and gratitude for our state. It was my life's honor to be elected governor 3 times, to work for the people of Washington now for 12 years. This is a place that means everything to me and Trudy. And man, I do love this state. And speaking of Trudy Inslee, I want to thank her and my family, especially my grandkids, Brooks, Nolan, Annie, Chase, Zoe, and Brody. You're leaders in our state, and I'm working for you. I'd also like to share... I'd also like to share my deep appreciation for the 65,000 state employees who've dedicated their work to making life better for all Washingtonians. We'll miss the work. We'll miss the work and the relationships. But I'm not here to talk about the end of something. A new legislative session means we should talk about beginnings. It was 35 years ago this week when I took my first oath of office as a legislator from the Yakima Valley. I took that oath in this building alongside many new faces. My colleagues and I had great conviction in those days, tremendous zeal, and full heads of hair. We were a new generation of legislators who sought to upend the status quo. Today I notice the new faces around Olympia. I see fresh visions for where we want to take our state. Leaders who want to make these dreams for Washington reality as fast as possible. My freshman class quickly saw that change often takes patience and resilience. But think about the progress we have made and the time and efforts it took to make it. We used to be a state that didn't fund early childhood education until a champion named Representative June Leonard started moving the needle. We didn't have outdoor heat protections for our farm workers. We didn't have paid family leave, a public health option, or a strategy to end youth homelessness. Washingtonians didn't have marriage equality. But brave visionaries like Senator Cal Anderson weren't quiet about this injustice. Thanks to years of work by undaunted individuals who showed up session after session, all of these things came to pass eventually. Since my terms in the legislature, I've represented congressional districts on both sides of the Cascades. I've held 3 terms as governor. And in this moment, our moment, I see a state that is evergreen and ever going forward. And to the new leaders here today, I say this: you will inevitably face frustration. You will struggle with the tyranny of the status quo. Do not lose patience. Do not trade in courage for comfort. Never forget that Martin Luther King said the moral arc of the universe bends slowly but steadily towards justice if we bend it. Even as governor, it took years to pass Cap and Invest, the capital gains tax, and assault weapons ban, and the nation's most generous college financial aid program. We kept working year in and year out. Eventually, we hit tremendous milestones in our state's tremendous history. Together, we complied with the McCleary ruling for funding schools, and it took years, but with heroic effort, we got it done. Together, we met the rapidly growing behavioral health demands highlighted by the True Blood ruling. Together, we reduced youth homelessness by 40%. Together, we've created the nation's best paid family leave, which has received over 1 million paid claims. Together, we passed the 2 biggest transportation funding packages in state history, putting thousands of people to work and broadening our focus beyond highways to include things like free transit for all Washingtonians 18 and younger. Now, there's more work to do, of course, but these accomplishments, I believe, should give us full confidence for the next steps. We keep moving forward. We pull together because we are the state of Washington. We came together through setback and calamity as well. We did it during the Skagit River Bridge collapse. We did it through multiple historic wildfire seasons. The people of Oso did it when the nation's worst landslide in history struck. We've rallied to welcome those fleeing war in places like Syria, Afghanistan, and Ukraine, because Washington values make us a place of refuge and opportunity in an unstable world. And we inspired a nation with how we cared for each other during COVID. You know, if the rest of the country had adopted our Washington approach to the pandemic, close to 500,000 lives could have been saved across America. The secret of our success is we don't leave anybody behind. We follow the science, and we work together to make extremely difficult decisions. Protecting that progress will be challenging this session. This budget situation is both one we've seen before and something entirely unique. The Great Recession triggered major reductions in spending and services, $11 billion in cuts, about the same amount of the budget gap we face today. Today, our economy is not in decline, unlike the Great Recession. Our economy is doing as well as it ever has. But that prosperity hasn't bloomed equally. While fortunes for some are growing, so are the lines at the food banks. Our economy provides more than enough to some, but our regressive tax system is unfair to most working families and jeopardizes our continued progress on the systems that Washingtonians depend on. For those who weren't here during the Great Recession, this is what $11 billion in cuts looks like. Suspending efforts to reduce class sizes and increase teacher pay. Taking state health care away from 40,000 low-income Washingtonians. Cutting higher education, causing tuitions to soar. Slashing mental health services at our state hospitals. And reducing safety net programs for people with disabilities, the elderly, and those living in poverty. It's fitting to look at this budget differently. Abstract numerical cuts actually mean concrete personal pain, like the pain of a kid who has to drop out of college because they can't afford a tuition hike, like the pain of the mother who's told there's no room at the hospital for her child in the midst of a schizophrenic episode. It took years to build back what we lost in that era. My budget in December proposed $2 billion in cuts, budget cuts, but pruning significantly more than that, I would consider a slide back to those dark days. We have a strong economy, so why would we consider cuts to programs like housing or mental and behavioral health services at a time like this? Not when we're finally seeing progress. Not when the number of people needing these services is increasing. Not when these programs are saving lives and making our communities safer and healthier. Washington voters just sent a strong message that they want to continue the path we're building. In 12 years, we have built a strong engine, an engine of increasing justice and increasing health for our residents. We cannot knock it off the tracks just as we've started rolling forward. More than 55% of voters said they want to keep their long-term care. Washingtonians believe our work on health care and human services. We should not consider anything that diminishes Washington's ambitions in this arena. More than 64% of our state said we're keeping our capital gains tax on extraordinary profits. My budget honors that principle by asking those who have benefited the most from Washington's booming economy to play more of a role protecting behavioral health, early learning, and education. Deep budget cuts always fall hardest on the people who cannot afford them, like working families or students trying to manage both their grades and their mental health, or the thousands who've been priced out by a housing market that has not kept pace with demand. Here's one thing I know. There are influential people and organizations that have your phone numbers. We're going to work those contacts hard all this session. Whether the influential voices feed you over lunch or corner you out in those halls, before you take that vote, I hope that you will think about the voiceless, the Washingtonians who don't have your cell phone numbers, and remember why you're here. We have to protect what they value the most too, especially when it comes to our youth and our families. We have to go forward on our investments in young people and education, like the work we've done to grow more support services and resources at our schools with social workers, paraeducators, and counselors. Robert Daniel is a counselor at Kylo Middle School in Federal Way. He's here today. They used to have one counselor serving more than 700 students' emotional, academic, and social needs. Now places like that school have enough counselors meeting the recommended ratio to provide more robust one-on-one counseling to the students who need it most. Counselors like Robert don't just react when students are in crisis. They are proactively involved in bringing out each student's own strengths. And they have more capacity to do that now thanks to this legislature. But they still need your continued support. Thank you, Robert, for being here. I appreciate you representing the whole educational community. Robert, where are you? Where's Robert? There's Robert. All right, there he is. This legislature has a clear mandate to continue its progress in other areas, including climate. Washingtonians have your back in this fight. 62% of voters chose to keep slashing pollution and strengthening our communities through Cap and Invest. On the news the other morning from Los Angeles, there was a woman fleeing the fires who turned around to go back to help save her neighbor's house. And they asked her why she did that. She said, "I just could not sit there and do nothing." When she said that, I thought of our state, about how we are doing something, a big-time something. I'm proud to tell you this. We are building a clean energy economy that is the envy of the entire nation, thanks to this legislature. I look forward to the day when both sides applaud when they get that good news. And that is good news. There's nearly 100% consensus in the scientific community that climate change is happening and that it's human caused. That's why I'm so heartened that we have acted. Since we passed the Climate Commitment Act, the problem statement has only grown with increasing fires and heat domes, increasing rainstorms and flooding, increasing acidification of our beloved Puget Sound, loss of glacial ice on Mount Rainier. The need for the programs funded by CCA will only continue to increase. It's called the Climate Commitment Act for a reason. I think we ought to honor that commitment. We shouldn't debilitate or steal from the central premise of why voters supported it. We're joined today by Vanessa Kalush from Queets. Vanessa works at the Quinault Tribe's Generations Building, supporting the community's culture through history and language and early education programs. Community resources like these are threatened because the very land it's on is at risk due to sea level rise caused by climate change. Now, they're not the only coastal community living with this threat. The Climate Commitment Act is supporting them by charging polluters and investing in those communities' relocation to higher ground. Thanks to the Climate Commitment Act and the choice by lawmakers to honor its purpose, the people of Queets are getting a new generations building on higher ground, safe from flooding, funded by Cap and Invest. It's just one example of so many how the CCA is keeping our communities to be safer and healthier. Vanessa, we wish you well. We're going to keep you high and dry. So Vanessa, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. We know we have work ahead of us because there's a new federal administration as well. Look, our state will work with anyone on policies that are positive for Washington, but we will not bend the knee to a would-be authoritarian's worst impulses. We will follow the Constitution. We will follow the Constitution, and we will be steadfast in our commitment to the progress of our state together. Bob Ferguson, a guy who knows about defending Washingtonians, will become Washington's 24th governor tomorrow. In November, Washington voters saw two different visions for the future of our state, and they chose to continue the path of progress. Congratulations, Bob. Best of luck. I'm leaving state government. Some may applaud. I don't know. We'll find out. Thanks for holding your applause. But my feet remain firmly planted in the fight for Washington's future. Although my administration's time is at an end, we have been running full speed through the tape, and now we're passing the baton. This legislature knows how to keep going. The challenges ahead will not weaken the momentum of what we're doing here. Washington State is a light to the world. We are a beacon of progress by so many measures because we follow the science. We work together. We refuse to leave our neighbors behind. When the law said the state could put someone to death, we refused to accept an imperfect system. We ended the death penalty. When the U.S. Supreme Court stole the right of choice, we stood up for reproductive health everywhere by welcoming patients and doctors to Washington State. When working families needed relief, we passed the Working Families Tax Credit, energy rebate, a public health option, free transit for everyone 18 and younger. When we saw LGBTQ youth being abused and manipulated by conversion therapy, we banned it. When we saw our state still had racist housing covenants, we struck those down too. And as deaths rose nationwide, we held the firearms industry accountable and passed some of the strongest reforms in the United States of America. This legislature has a lot of hard work ahead. You have the grit and the vision to keep up this pace of progress. I know this about you. It's why I'm grateful to have worked with all of you. I woke up every morning these last 12 years asking how I could help Washingtonians realize their dreams. And every morning I was filled with confidence in the genius, the compassion, and the grand ambitions of our great state of Washington. Tomorrow morning, I know you all will wake up with the same sense of confidence, optimism, and hope. To Washington, I bid you fair winds and following seas. Thank you. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you, Governor. Governor Inslee. Well, I'd like to self-congratulate for the iron grip control of protocol just demonstrated, and thank Representatives Engel and Fitzgibbon and Senators Kaufman and Short on the spectacular job you did escorting Governor Inslee from the House chambers. Let's do it a little better with the next two groups, please. Will the committee come forward and escort the statewide elected officials from the state chamber? Representatives Hunt and Stevie and Senators Bateman and Christian. Will the committee come forward and escort the Supreme Court justices from the chamber, Representatives Burnett and Taylor, and Senators Trudeau and Wagner? The representative from the 34th District, Representative Fitzgibbon.
Mr. President, I move that the joint session now be dissolved.
It has been moved and seconded that the joint session now be dissolved. As many are in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. As many are opposed, say no. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. It is now my privilege and pleasure to return the gavel to its rightful place with Speaker Jenkins. Thank you so much to the members of the House for your gracious hospitality.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Heck. Will the Sergeant-at-Arms of the House and the Sergeant-at-Arms of the Senate please come forward and escort the President of the Senate, Denny Heck, and members of the Washington State Senate from the House chamber. The representative from the 34th District, Representative Fitzgibbon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House now adjourn until 10 a.m. January 15th, the third legislative day.
It's been moved and seconded that the House adjourn until 10 a.m. January 15th. For members' information, there will be brief floor action at 10 a.m. The Senate will arrive shortly before the 11:30 a.m. joint session for the purposes of administering the oath of office to statewide elected officials and receiving the inaugural address of Governor Ferguson. Members are requested to report to the floor at 10 a.m. and to return to the floor and be in their seats no later than 11:15 a.m. As many as are in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye. As many as opposed, say no. That motion is adopted. The House is now adjourned until 10 a.m. January 15th, the third legislative day.